Welcome back to Rapid Reels. We are back today with another thriller. The movie follows three friends that are on a skiing trip at a ski resort on Mount Hollister. The three friends attempt to take one last trip up the ski lift before the resort closes, but things begin to take an unexpected turn. This movie will surely make you think twice the next time you go skiing or snowboarding. It begins with three friends, Parker, Dan, and Joe, who are waiting by the ski lift. They are hoping to get on for free because Joe knows one of the workers there. They waited, but the person who was next on shift is not the person that Joe knows. The group then had to come up with a different plan. Dan suggests to Parker that she could use her looks to convince the new worker to let them in for free. Dan also hands her some cash just in case she needs to bribe the worker. Parker reluctantly agrees despite her being weirded out by the idea. Parker makes her way to the worker and asks him for a cigarette. Parker proceeds to introduce herself and the worker reveals that his name is Jason. Parker then tells Jason that she had promised her girlfriends that she would pay for their lift tickets, but she accidentally left her card at the gas station. The worker chuckles in disbelief. Parker quickly added that she has money, but just not enough for all three of them. Parker is seen walking into the ski lift line before waving over at Dan and Joe, signaling them to come over. As they were about to get on the lift, Jason sees Parker and gives her a nod. When Jason sees Dan and Joe, he questions Parker as she told him that it was her girlfriends. Before Parker could reply, however, the lift comes around and takes them up to the mountain. As the three are on the lift, the audience finds out that Parker and Dan are actually dating and Joe is Dan's best friend. As the lift makes its way up the mountain, it suddenly stops and Parker begins to worry. Joe asks if Parker is afraid of heights. Parker hesitantly replies no and Joe begins to shake the lift in order to scare Parker. Dan quickly stops Joe before turning to comfort Parker to make her feel better. Not long after, the lift starts up again and the three make it to the top of the mountain. Once at the top of the mountain, Joe sees a girl struggling with her snowboard, so he goes over to help her out. Suddenly, a dude appears and pushes Joe to the ground. The girl calls out the dude, who is named Brian, as he did not have to get confrontational. Joe was clearly just trying to help her. The girl quickly asks if Joe is okay and apologizes for Ryan's actions. She introduces herself as Shannon and thanks Joe for his help before heading down the mountain. The three then begin making their way down the mountain as Parker struggles to keep up with Dan and Joe. After skiing, the three decide to take a break and grab some food inside the resort. Joe and Dan are having a conversation as the audience finds out that they were actually only going up and down the bunny slopes all day. Joe then comments that he is tired of seeing Parker fall on her ass all day and asks Dan when they were actually going to go up to the top of the mountain. Parker overhears Joe and tells them that she does not want to intrude with the bro time. She also added that if they want to continue skiing and snowboarding, she would be okay staying behind at the resort. Joe quickly apologizes and tells Parker that he did not really mean it in a hurtful way. Once Parker and Joe make up, the three begin making their way to the ski lift once again. As they are walking there, Joe runs into Shannon again and the two begin to have a conversation. Shannon apologizes again for what happened earlier. She reveals that Ryan is actually her ex-boyfriend, but they are still trying to stay friends. Joe commented saying that seems to be working very well. Shannon laughs before telling Joe that she and her friends snowboard every Sunday. She asks Joe if he will be at the resort again next weekend. Joe tells Shannon that he will indeed be here next weekend and that he will see her then. The two proceed to say their goodbyes. Before walking away, however, Joe turns back around and asks for Shannon's number so that they can keep in touch. Once Joe catches up with Dan and Parker, Jason tells the group that the resort is actually closing early today due to weather issues. Parker then tries to convince Jason again. This time she tells him that they will go straight down once they get up to the mountain. Jason could not say no to Parker, so he reluctantly lets them on the lift. Another resort worker named Rift comes up to Jason afterwards. He tells him that the boss wants to talk to him about the upcoming work schedule. Before taking off, Jason lets Rift know that there are three more riders that need to come down the mountain before he could shut down the lift. As the lift is making its way up the mountain, the three friends see three other riders below them hitting a ramp while going down the mountain. Back at the bottom of the lift, Rift asks a fellow worker if he could cover for him as he really needs to pee, but the worker ignores him. Once Rift sees three riders coming down the mountain, he quickly shuts off the lift and begins heading for the bathroom. The power suddenly stops and the three are once again stuck on the lift. Out of boredom, Dan randomly asks the others what they thought the worst way to die would be. Dan said that he thinks being eaten by a shark would be the worst way to die. Parker then comments saying that she thinks burning alive would be the worst way to go. She mentions seeing how horrific 9/11 was on TV when she was a little kid. Joe says that he believes the worst way to go out is from the Sarlacc pit from the Return of the Jedi. Dan then mocks Joe by saying he wonders why Joe does not have a girlfriend yet. Suddenly, the whole resort's lights turn off and the three friends begin to realize what just happened. Joe begins calling out for help, but it seems like all the workers have left the resort. Parker starts to panic and begins speaking nonsense. Dan quickly stops her because she was scaring him. Dan still refuses to believe that the workers have left them on the lift without knowing. Parker then comments saying that it is Sunday and the resort does not open again until Friday. Joe tries to comfort Parker as he agrees with Dan. He does not believe that the workers could just leave them up here. Parker informs the others that she has to pee. Joe also says that he has to pee as well. Joe also says that he is not going to wait the whole week to pee, so he lifts up the safety bar and begins peeing from above. Parker is grossed out by Joe and says that she can hold in her pee. Suddenly, a snow blizzard begins to come down on them. The three sits on the lift hopelessly as they struggle to keep warm. Out of nowhere, a resort snow vehicle begins driving towards them. The three friends begin cheering and calling out for the worker from above. Because of the storm, Cody, the driver, does not seem to hear them. A radio buzzed within the vehicle and Cody is told to come back to base as he no longer has to go pick up his co-worker Barnes in the mountains. The three friends begin to panic as the vehicle begins driving away. They start throwing down their gears to get Cody's attention, but nothing seems to be working. The vehicle eventually disappears into the darkness. After some time, the blizzard begins to die down. The weather has done its damage as the three friends can hardly keep themselves warm. Parker starts to stress out, so she pulls out her pack of cigs. She accidentally drops one of her gloves down below. Dan notices that Parker's face is beginning to get frostbites. Dan then suddenly decides that he is going to jump off the lift and onto the snow to go look for help. Parker disagrees with his decision as she did not want him to leave her. Joe thinks that it is a terrible idea. He suggests that they at least stay on the lift until daytime to see if anyone will come. Dan disagrees with him as he already made up his mind. He first throws off his snowboard and it lands into the snow below. He tries to compose himself before he jumps off the lift feet first. Dan falls into the ground and breaks both of his legs. He wakes up in shock as he could not believe what just happened. Parker and Joe try to comfort Dan from above, but Dan is in a lot of pain. Joe suggests that he could maybe climb the wire of the lifts in order to get to a spot where he could come down. Suddenly, the three begin hearing wolves howling from the forest. Dan begins to freak out. Joe begins to climb onto the wire but almost slips off from the ice. Joe and Parker begin breaking the ice so that Joe can get more leverage from the seat. All of a sudden, a wolf appears right in front of Dan with a mean look on its face. Parker throws her snowboard off the lift and it scares the wolf away. Joe then tries to climb the metal lift wires one more time. As he slowly makes his way towards the next lift, the metal wire begins cutting into his gloves. Suddenly, Joe changes his mind and goes back onto the lift with Parker. Parker asks Joe what was wrong. Joe grabs Parker's face and tells her not to look down. Down below, the wolf has come back with a whole pack. Dan yells from below and tells Joe not to let Parker look as he gets torn apart by the pack of wolves. Parker and Joe screams in terror as the wolves chew pieces out of Dan. Parker and Joe begin to break down as they cannot believe what just happened. In the next scene, Parker and Joe sit on the lift hopelessly as the cold begins to worsen their frostbites. Joe reveals that his hands are bleeding from the metal wire. Parker suddenly asks Joe why he let Dan jump off when the drop was too far. Joe then defends himself, asking Parker why she did not do anything when Dan wanted to jump. Parker said that Dan would not have listened to her. Joe said that he told Dan it was a bad idea, but he did not hear Parker say anything except for crying about it. Joe then gets angry at Parker and begins blaming her for their situation. Joe tells Parker that they would not be here if they did not ride up and down the bunny slopes all day. Parker begins breaking down and apologizes to Joe. The two begin hugging as they try to comfort each other and mourn about Dan. In the morning, Parker wakes up and notices that she accidentally left her hand on the metal railing. Her skin is completely stuck to it as she tries to move the railing. She then slowly pulls her hand apart from the railing and pulls off part of her hand. Joe wakes up from the sudden noise. The two continue to wait as the day begins to go by. Parker, who has held in her pee all night, begins to pee on herself as she breaks down in tears. Parker starts thinking about Dan again. She begins blaming herself for not doing anything. Joe tells Parker that there was nothing they could have done. Parker blames herself for just sitting on the lift while Dan was dying. Joe reminds Parker that Dan jumped down because he wanted to save them. Joe then begins thinking and tells Parker that Dan did not die just so Joe and Parker can die up here too. Joe decides to give the metal wire on the lift one more shot. Joe asks Parker to help him up as he grabs onto the wire. Suddenly, part of the lift breaks off from the metal wire. Joe continues making his way to the lift behind them as he cannot turn around now. Suddenly the wolf pack returns as they watch Joe from below. Joe almost slips off but manages to hop onto the lift before he falls off. Joe's hand has been destroyed by the wire. Joe instructs Parker to throw his ski poles on the ground so he could have something to defend himself with when he gets down. Parker throws the poles and almost breaks her ski lift. Joe then continues on as he climbs towards the ski lift towers. He slowly makes his way down the ladder and onto the ground. Once he gets on the ground, he is immediately jumped by one of the wolves from below. Joe manages to grab his ski pole and stabs the wolf, causing it to run away. He tells Parker that he will head down the mountain to look for help. Joe then attaches his skis to his boots and begins making his way down the mountain. As he is seen skiing off, a pack of wolves follows him from behind. Parker continues to wait on the lift as she no longer has any other choice. Parker wakes up from her sleep and realizes that Joe probably did not make it down the mountain. Parker then begins to panic as she tries to devise a plan. She begins slowly lowering herself from the lift. The lift begins to fall and stops right before hitting the ground. Parker then proceeds to let go of the lift and falls to the ground. Once she makes it to the ground, the lift falls and lands on her foot. Parker is in a lot of pain, but she begins crawling her way down the mountain. As she gets slower down the mountain, she crawls past what looks like Joe's body. It has been torn into pieces by the pack of wolves. The wolves left her alone as they had already eaten enough from Joe's body. Parker continues down the mountain slowly until she reaches a road and sees a car driving by. She signaled for their help, but the car just drove by her without noticing. Luckily though, another car drives by as she is laying on the side of the road. The man proceeds to help her into his car before calling the police and drives her to the hospital. Thanks for watching. If you are interested in more rapid reels, please consider clicking the like and subscribe button. It would really help us out. Also, do not forget to click the notification bell so that you do not miss out on any future uploads. Take care and have a wonderful day.